Hey, this is Thomas from the First, the Last, the Nerdom, and I'm here with.
Mike, Mike
Yep.
Shaw. Yep.
All right,
This
and yeah, we're talking about the Apocalypse, and we're going to be focusing on a couple of movies. These two movies aren't necessarily always thought of as apocalypse movies. We wanted to kind of get out of the just everybody has their go-to apocalypse movie, Mad Max or
Yep.
Blade Runner, or just any that just kind of jump out at you. We wanted to go for maybe some lesser known ones or ones that hadn't got the love. And the one I picked isn't exactly an apocalypse movie; it's more of a dystopian fairy tale. But I thought it fit in nicely with the theme of apocalypse.
was something, wasn't it? It was definitely something. Like it doesn't really have to do with the past or necessarily the future. More, it's like
Hmm.
well, I like to bring up sliders, like a
Hmm.
parallel kind of cyberpunk. I don't know, or no, not
Yeah.
cyberpunk. Excuse me, steampunk. It's like a mix. It's like a
Hmm.
weird
Yeah,
thing. But
and yeah, and it's look like a city surrounded by water. It's a French film, so obviously, I guess there's a lot of French canals or whatnot in French. So I'm sure that the director and writers were kind of inspired by their surroundings in
and,
making this kind of fantasy land.
and what it is French, and 95 is what it says there up
Hmm.
on the title, and I knew that going in.
Hmm.
I knew that. Um,
Yeah.
the
So yeah,
the what made you want to pick this one?
just whenever I think of sort of a apocalypse, it's sort of, I guess it's more of the mood of the film. It's really extremely dark, and you could almost make it out to be like a horror movie, but it has sort of like this sweet soul at the center of it. There's like very sweet characters that you find hope in, and surrounded by all this darkness. And I was just completely enamored with it the first time I saw it.
I would agree with that. There is it's so it everything in this movie strikes you when you see it. uh,
It's
it,
visually stunning.
it is. I enjoyed the look of it, and you just rattled off
Hmm.
like a bunch. Blade Runner, the one that we'll get to eventually that I picked out, are they're very
Hmm.
visually focused for
Hmm.
sure. That's what I thought.
Yeah. Hmm.
I would. That's a perfect description of it. It does have this sweet kind of center soul to it, but
Hmm.
makes you kind of rooting for it a little bit here
Hmm.
and there. Like when you, and this is what I appreciate that I don't think, and I'll call back to last week, in a different genre, in manga, there was a lot more emphasis on the character building. Um,
Hmm.
the way that the characters were built, the way you were drawn in to root for them, to like kind of
Hmm.
follow them and see where they ended up. Their sadness
Hmm.
was your sadness. I don't want to get too in the weeds, but
uh But
I
yeah,
was
the
I was
characters
surprised.
are kind of, yeah, the characters are almost kind of archetypal. Like the female lead in it is a child, and she has a kind of brassy kind of attitude, like a lot of fairy tale girls are, like Alice in Wonderland and um, Dorothy. They
Good
have
point.
they have their outlook, and most of the main characters are children. And Ron Perlman is the main lead, and he's very much childlike in this.
Mhm. Yeah, he plays the big brother for one of the characters, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, no, they have interesting names like Ron Perlman. His name in it is one.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah, it just it adds to the air of you don't quite know what's going on sometimes.
Hmm.
You get the
Yeah,
general gist of it
yeah.
and I don't want to ruin anything or spoilers, but it's really I'm gonna have to watch this a couple more times. Not for
Uh-huh.
like the sake of I didn't understand what was going on, but from the standpoint of like this is easily one of those cliche. You keep watching it and you'll see something new every time. I can
Oh
see
yeah,
that for sure with this.
yeah. Yeah, and it's been years since I've seen it, and seeing it again was like almost seeing it for the first time again. Oh, and we didn't pre think this out, but I don't know if you can, but maybe without sound, maybe play the trailer just because it's so visually
Absolutely.
um,
Yeah.
stunning movie. You got to get a idea. I know some of our uh, watchers are more listeners, so so if you wanted to, our listeners, if you're listening to this, if you want to just pop over to your screen and watch it, but we'll talk while it plays, and maybe do a little bit of commentary as we do it.
Yeah, I found out some interesting background to this too,
Hmm.
where there was a video game. I want to say I can't remember, but it was like a lot of the visuals were brought from this.
Mm.
But I didn't know that. I didn't find that out until after the fact. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I watched a
Hmm.
couple posts. You know,
Hmm.
folks that are smarter than me on YouTube for like
Hmm.
some of the things that I didn't watch all of it, but they said something
Yeah.
about was inspired. Some of the artwork from it inspired the
Hmm.
early Fallout
Hmm.
series.
Yeah, and this movie and the one that we're going to talk that you picked out are both on Amazon Prime. We like to pick movies that are easily accessible. The director of this co-director, there's two directors for this. They also did previously Delicatessen, which is another obviously French movie, and it's very good as well. And it is actually uh, is set in an apocalyptic world, definitely. They split up after this movie, and one of them, and the split was because they got offered to do Alien 4, and the and one of them director thought it was a great idea, and the other did not. So if you're watching this trailer, watch this movie. One of those actors, or well, two of them actually, you'll notice are in Alien 4. Ron Perlman and that Dominic guy. Dominic plays a cloned character in this. Yeah,
Yeah,
plays like yeah. Go ahead.
I'm just reminded of different things in the movie too. The fleas and
Yeah. Yeah.
they had this is obviously a French film, if that wasn't obvious, but it is. And what was I going to say? Oh, it was a pretty groundbreaking when I think it was what I don't remember the exact fact, but it was something along the lines of like it was a pretty big special effects movie at the time.
Hmm.
This is Nightmare Alley. We don't care about Nightmare Alley.
Yeah, and like I said, the special effects there. I don't believe there was much CGI. It was mostly just practical, and it really plays into this world. This, as you may have seen through those images, very
Mhm.
grim and gritty sort of world. And from the looks, the visuals of it, you would think that it's a very dark movie, which it is. But again, like we were talking about, the characters bring a sweetness and life to it that wouldn't be there without them.
In some ways, it does take the edge off with having kids in there,
Hmm.
having children in there,
Yeah,
obviously. But it
yeah, I think so.
also gives it another layer of like horribleness. Almost like I would
Yes.
agree with you,
Uh-huh.
like not horror, but just
Yes.
horribleness that these poor
Hmm.
kids like. There's clones and there's a bunch of little thing. I'm kind of dropping a little bit here and there, but it's very interesting. There's a
But
brain. I didn't
yeah,
think what they
yeah.
showed that.
Yeah, and the kids, most of the kids work for a thief ring, led by these two ladies, and so yeah, these kids are living a hard life of criminals, just trying to eking an existence out of this. And the basic story is Ron Perlman plays character one, and he has a little brother who is kidnapped by these people that are selling him to the scientist that steals dreams from children.
So he
And
can't dream
one,
for some reason. He has no joy in that
yes,
sense. Right.
Uh-huh. And so it's one's journey on finding his little brother and saving him, and he runs upon these ring of thieves, and this little girl decides to help him out, and not as clear cut as I'm saying, but there's sort of like ins and outs to the story that brings it again a lot of charm to it.
Yet there's a final boss, kind of sort of way of looking at it.
Yeah.
Sub boss.
Yeah, there's yeah, and it's told very much like a fairy tale. There's not a lot of exposition. There's not a lot of getting to the nitty gritty of what's actually going on. It's all sort of there, and you could pick up on it. You could read more into it. But the world's so rich that, like Mike was saying, you could watch it a second time or a third time and see a little bit more in it. It's a fully realized world that you could find very interesting little things to kind of focus on throughout the film.
Yep, I would agree with that completely. That is. I want to say that probably the more of this that I'm going to see and I'm going to watch, the more I'm probably going to fall more in love with it. It's probably going to sneak its way into some of the favorite movies that I like to watch periodically once in a while.
Yeah. But yeah, I was mentioning Alien 4, but that one director, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, I probably butchered his name, but he his biggest known movie is Amelie, which is also a French film, and that one's one of my absolute favorite movies. And but yeah, it's visually stunning and very much fairy tale like as well. And that one's about a young woman in I think Paris, kind of filling her world with sort of fantasy. So, but yeah, that one's very good too. The bad thing is, he made a couple movies after that, but I think the last one he did was in early 2010s and hasn't been able to make a movie since because no one's willing to give him money for his crazy ideas, which I think is pretty sad.
That sucks. There's no way.
Yeah.
That just sucks for sure. Yeah, that's I was surprised, and I kind of didn't believe you that Ron Perlman was in this, like before when you were lining it up. He is for sure. Like it's good to step out of your comfort zone, because you're very correct in that observation about how to put it in a way that won't make folks mad or doesn't sound too stupid. Modern movies kind of tell you what to think. I mean, they hit you over the head with a sledgehammer with the visuals to like kind of like make it into a point. And then there's other titles that just they don't they kind of zoom and skip and lens flare through everything, and then all of a sudden you're at the final battle and you don't know what the hell is going on.
Yeah, and I may sound like a broken record, and especially towards the end of the podcast when we mention them again. But you remind me of Red Letter Media. I was watching one of their reviews of a newer movie, and they were talking about another newer movie, and they were saying why they liked the one that they were reviewing, because it didn't beat you over the head with the message of the film. It just was there, and you could pick up whatever you wanted. They treated you like a smart person and let you pull what they meant from the movie because of what was on the screen, as opposed to what the characters were telling you. They weren't broadcasting everything, and they were kind of complaining about another more recent movie that I think is up for an Oscar that kind of beats you over the head with its message. And they didn't quite like that. Where I think the director on Twitter was telling you how you were supposed to take the movie.
I think it makes sense for you to understand if it's historical, maybe. Outside of that, though, I fall in love with the movies that make me figure it out. Like
even historical movies like Lincoln, that one was pretty much kind of told in through Lincoln's eyes, and that one didn't beat you up over the head
Oh yeah.
either.
Well, if you go back and look at any movie in the 60s or the 50s or even in the 70s, what was the one that I saw? Oh, me and the kiddos probably about a year ago, we watched the I don't know why, but I was like, let's watch this, and we did. It was Ocean's 11. It was the original Ocean's 11. It wasn't that. I don't think that's what it was, the original title, and I'm horrible for not knowing that. But there, in that movie, you literally had like a minute, 2 minutes of just the shot and the background noise or whatever. And you would never find that length of time on some of the shots that they did, especially like where they would pan out and there would be like a big group shot and they would be playing cards or poker, the scene or whatever it is. Like you do not see that nowadays. And it's so nice to kind of be born in our era and then go back and look at that stuff and appreciate how good of a film it was, whether it's a lot of these old ones, and not just old ones, but I don't want this to be like a big thing, but like maybe that would be fun, like where we could take a walk through like maybe French sci-fi movies or European ones or other ones that are not English that you and I normally would never come into contact with, for sure. That would be cool, but always an idea. For sure.
Well, there's people talking about how modern film is bad, and I'm like, well, go back. I mean, there's plenty of movies that I miss that are, I'm sure, gems. And I'm sure when my dad was alive, I'm sure what he was watching, as far as what I was watching at that time wasn't his bag, So he went back and he was going through and reading his old westerns and whatnot. There's if you don't like what's present, go back in the past. That's always there.
It's true. Yeah, that it is funny how, and I wish I could find it, but there is like a chart over time of like for the 1800s, like late 1800s up till now, of like what was popular in pop culture. You had and they're genres. So you had musicals and soap operas and westerns, and you can just see the birth of them, and you can see the death of them as you kind of go through time, and it's just interesting because at some point, this comic book sci-fi thing that we're in is going to die. It's going to die. It's going to move on to something else, and then that will be whatever captures the popular imagination and becomes a touchstone, if it's lucky enough. But I love this movie. I was surprised. It was very good. I would watch it again. I do. Thomas, you were absolutely right by recommending this, like to go see it for yourself. And it is available on Amazon Prime, and I'm sure it's other ones out there too, if that's not your favorite, maybe iTunes or whatever. But that's a good sign when people are still watching it, that keep it alive. Cool. Yeah. I would agree. It's very dystopian. The future's bleak. This sucks. The only thing we have is each other. That type of thing.
And at the heart of it, the thing that the center of it is family.
Very true. Yeah, this again just goes back to qualities that you won't find, or you'd be very hard pressed to find it in a non-animated movie. Nowadays.
And as far as the audience for this, I know it's rated R, but to be honest, if your child is older and kind of handles scary things, I would think that they would be able to watch this. I can't think of course, I don't watch things through what your child would see, so you may be better apt to be able to say whether or not this is child friendly or not.
Yeah, I'd say if you were just being a parent and having a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, I think that if they're over, maybe I think 8 or 9 might be a little young to go in there if you don't pre-screen it for them, or you don't know your particular kiddos ins and outs, what they're about, what they're not about. But
because there's definitely some scary moments, and people do get killed in it, but not in a over. Well, I guess there is a couple of scenes in there. Well, so for an older child,
it's out there. It's out there, but it's not like Saw.
Right.
You know, it's not like Saw. Like they're just like it's just body horror. It's just it's not even body gore, body horror. You know, it's just the just as gory as the not. It's not that at all. It fits the story. It fits the situation. Every one of these things fits the next one, from one shot to the next one to the next. And I'm no cinematographer, but it. And again, I kind of had to look up what was going on, and you can get an idea. There's a story developing there. It's just you got to find your own way, you know. And I'm not overly bright, but even I can follow along with it. So it was. I would say it's kiddo. Wouldn't say it's kiddo friendly. I would say that it's adult with kiddo friendly for sure. You know, this is not something you want them to watch by themselves. But who knows? I don't know. Maybe your 13-year-old kid or your 10-year-old kid is chewing tobacco and cussing. Who knows? You know, if that's the case, then they probably won't be bothered by it. But
I remember, just go off on another tangent, but I remember one of my coworkers way back in the day. She had a small child, and her child ended up watching Jurassic Park for whatever reason, and she thought the kid thought it was the funniest thing around. So you never know.
That's for sure. You don't. That's a good point. Yeah. There were that I loved it. I would recommend it too. We don't really do stars or rating scales here. We just say see it or don't see it, you know, or maybe make up your own mind.
Right. Yeah. And if you have any thoughts on it, leave it in the comments below.
Please. Yeah, absolutely. And tell us if you learned about another one from this, if it becomes a series for you, maybe, or anything, because you never know. Yeah. So with that being said, great, visually awesome, great film, Tom. Thomas, a great one. Great. It's just good to maybe it reminded me of to watch more foreign films for sure.
Yeah. I was for a while there, back when I was a movie snob back in the 1990s. I had a big focus on foreign films. So yeah, my knowledge of foreign films are probably a little, especially during that time period, is probably better than most.
I'd say, well, we are reaping the benefits of it for sure. And with that being said, are you ready to go into the next, into the next one? I don't think we're going to have as much to say about this one, but we'll see. So this one was Apocalypto, made it 11 years later than Thomas's 95, Lost City, the City of Lost Children. This is Apocalypto, famous. It was where Mel Gibson, I'd have to go back, but it was Mel Gibson was still pretty popular and still pretty famous. I think it was maybe a little bit after his downfall here or there, but he definitely came back up over time. But in all that notwithstanding, this one is the good way to put it would be it's about of course it's historically inaccurate, so we don't care about that. But it still tells a story about a young man who is racing against time to rescue his family, and to get out of what was going on. And he's being chased by this other tribe, more advanced tribe. There's kind of two levels here of like where they're at. You know, they're just he needs to escape from them because otherwise, like they go. This band of Mayan warriors, I guess, goes out and they cull. That's the best way I can put it. They cull the more defenseless, poor parts of the rural side, and they capture them, and then they take them to the central area, and then they get sacrificed. It's pretty brutal. This one is not for kids at all.
No,
this is very
definitely not.
It is the anti-chick flick type movie. So if you're squeamish or you don't like blood or gore, of course this is all telling for the story, but it's not just. It's just visually stunning when compared, because there's hardly any talking. When they do talk in the Mayan language, I believe, is how they did it. But everything, there's like unknowns here. No, it's all. And I agree with the thought that if Mel Gibson would have done this with like major players, that people know, it wouldn't be the same movie at all. It would.
Yeah, if you threw Sandra Bullock in there, you would immediately been taken out of the movie.
Yeah, it would have been garbage. There's just no other way to put it. It would have been a garbage movie. Nobody would be talking about it. We wouldn't be talking about it today.
Right.
Everything about it. This reminded me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to just add to your comment there that it would totally have been a different movie with named actors with unknowns in it. You could and with these Mayans being in their garb and their gear, and it really makes you feel like you're watching almost like a documentary with these guys and girls being very tribalistic looking. It's similar to like when I watch an animated movie and they get all named people, you're like, oh yeah, there's Will Ferrell, and then there's what's his name, and it kind of takes you out of the animated movie. Whereas if you have just unknown people, you can get really buried into the story as opposed to, look who's there.
Exactly. Yeah, it becomes the showrunners in the title, the people up on the marquee, and the nobody really cares about the film. That was just a vessel for them to act in.
Yeah.
Plenty of those out in modern days. This is unusual. It is.
Yeah, it's great that you had Mel Gibson there to put there in the title as an audience pool.
It's true. That's very true. Yeah. But I think that was when he made his transition, though. I think he wanted to make a transition from just actor to director or producer, that kind of thing. And he definitely made that. He has made, I don't know what the current temperature is for Mel Gibson. As far as I'm concerned, he's good to go for me. Like, I have more issues with other folks than him. But of course, I don't really care about somebody's, if they make a boo-boo, it's one thing. Kind of like how Russia made a boo-boo last week. But sweeping that aside, people just being humans, you have talent. You're going to keep doing what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, I don't need to have a score sheet of what you've done wrong and what you've done right. As long as you haven't murdered somebody, and maybe even if you did, it may still be great to watch.
Well, and there's people out there that get in front of a camera, and there's zero sincerity or authenticity when they are on screen. There are a lot of people, but there are other people that they come out and they are on camera or whatever, and they look genuine and sincere and contrite, that kind of thing. And I go on the side of all is forgiven, that kind of thing. Like, I'm not going to give credence to the past, because who cares? Like, what have I not messed up or whatever? Like, and then also, like, what state you're in, what was the context around that? That's a lot of we lose nuance. But
and there's always been especially now, but there's always been people that say, oh well, I hate that actor, I hate that band, I hate this, I hate that. And I always respond, well, what did this band, what did this person, this actor, director do to you? If he killed your dog, I would understand. Okay, you can hate him, but outside that, I don't see why you could dislike them. That's cool, but hate is such a strong word. I don't hate anyone unless they've really personally done something wrong to me personally.
Right. Yeah, it's a high threshold. People, I think that's a word that's thrown around quite a bit. Well, you know what? Love is a lot of words. A lot of heavy words are thrown around a lot nowadays. But anyway, that's a whole exposition on society. But we're not that podcast. That's somebody else.
Right. we're talking about the Mayan society right now.
Yeah.
If you want to hit the trailer too while we talk.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool.
That's a great idea. Good idea.
Yeah. But like you were saying, this is a very brutal movie. This is one of those types of movies I love. And this is a movie that's actually there's like a calm part in the first 10-15 minutes of the movie to kind of set the characters in play and kind of see their world before it just totally goes to hell. And then the rest of the movie is just total action, total on your edge of your seat, what's going to happen next kind of movie. It just keeps going at you, and that's the kind of movies I really enjoy,
I would
or one
say
of the kinds.
if bangs offend you, this movie has a lot of different kind of bangs that are going on, but kind of being funny. But it is very visual, and I don't want to say that it reminded me a lot of, because it didn't. Certain aspects of it did. Last of the Mohicans. That one was a lot. That's a completely different movie, and it has unfortunately doesn't fit what our podcast is about, because it's a great movie. Love that movie.
Yeah.
But it is akin to that, kind of like how Dances with Wolves is akin to it, just from the standpoint of it has to do with native tribes from old days of old. And I've always been fascinated with, just growing up, I've been fascinated with the history of the Maya, the Aztec. There's a third one there I'm missing. The Inca down in South America with Hernan Cortez. It's just yeah, and even out here in St. Louis, there's Cahokia Mountains, and that was supposed to be a very big metropolis back then. It was I can't remember the time frame. It was around 700 AD, I think. Something along those lines is when it was at the height, and then it kind of just went nowhere.
Yeah.
But the pacing here, everything about it, how he's trying to escape. I mean, it just
it shows you what a good director Mel Gibson is, to handle this much action for over 2 hour long movie.
Yeah, that's world building was done phenomenally with this. This would probably be a textbook example of like I said, there is no talk. It's about the visuals, it's about the story, all of it.
Yeah, I talked to my my younger sister and her husband a couple days ago, let them know what we were going to be talking about, and I mentioned this movie, and neither one of them had seen it before, and were kind of intrigued by it. And my brother-in-law, I know he hates subtitles, and I was like, yeah, it is subtitled, but don't worry, there's not a whole lot of reading. You don't have to deal with much on this one. But yeah, just a fun fact about myself. Back in college, I was a history major, and I didn't actually write the paper, but I did I had a class on South American tribes, and one of my we actually did a paper outline. If we were going to actually write a paper, we had to kind of do all the research, put together the outline, and put together all of it. And mine was on human sacrifice in tribes in South America, which was kind of very interesting to research. But yeah, for some reason she didn't actually have us write the paper. She said, if you do all the research, you do the outline, you pretty much you showed that you were competent on what you were researching.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. That's pretty cool. I just love that. So like it kind of just speaking, and then we could probably be maybe another 5 minutes and then go on to the next thing. But aside from that, what was that word? Sorry, let me collect my thoughts. So what I've always found fascinating around that time frame is when the Spanish came over, conquistadors, not all the death and the conquering, but that is probably the closest that humanity would have from a somewhat advanced civilization meeting primitives in their own right. And they're advanced in their own right for sure about mathematics and the stars, calendars, etc. But as we all knew in 2012 for the end of the Mayan, and I think it was even wrong. I think it was even wrong for the date, but of course it would be because it's pop culture and it grabs a hold of our fascination with why we're doing this, because there's always like this turn inward to kind of what would happen if the zombies came, or if we had a pandemic, or if we had the machines rise. What happens when that happens? What happens when the earth just goes crazy and the magnetic lines just shift or whatever, or the day after tomorrow type stuff, where it's just this crazy, the world is ending, and it's very interesting. But anyway, kind of going back to what I'm drawn to is that's probably the nearest analog that we have in our history of like what would happen if we did get invaded by aliens, or never mind invaded, but what happens if they come here, what's going to happen? Well, if you look at what happened to the Spanish, unless they're driven by a higher ethics or moral something or other that we just can't account for, or why they would even want to come here, that's a whole other point. Why, or if they could, if they even could, that's another thing. But it's just fascinating to me because that's the closest we're ever going to get to kind of analyzing it from a anthropology kind of sociological point of view of like when cultures clash, and that has happened throughout time. It's just never been that. I don't think personally, and I'm no historian. I've only taken a history class here or there. I've read a lot of books, but where you have that tremendous clash of cultures and what happens and what's the result.
And to build upon that, I had another professor where he did early American history where the settlers came over, and his position was actually his focus was on Native America, and his idea was that despite everything, really at the time the settlers were coming over, they weren't really that much advanced than the Indians. They had built up their writing and culture and all of that to our standard of civilization, whereas the Native Americans were seen as more primitive. But as far as technology wise, weapon wise, they were almost on an equal footing, so to speak, in that the downfall of the American Indians was, in his opinion, that they didn't see it as an invasion. They saw it as other people coming. They were very nomadic and didn't have feelings of that they didn't claim the land. So when people came over, it was like, okay, hey, welcome to the party. It wasn't until it was too late, to the point where we had built up our technology to the point where we could destroy them, that it was too late for them.
Yep, they started to see to piggyback on that and keep it going. Like that's exactly what the point of view. I read a book not too long ago. Well, actually, a while ago. I say that. The Lakota America, which kind of takes it from that point of view. I don't want to spend too long in this in the real world here. Yeah. But essentially, that was it. That was it. It was like one tribe. They were also very very separated. There were not common alliances. There were not things. Things just kind of rolled on as the season changed. Maybe they were friends this one. Maybe they had a war this time. Whatever. It was very individualistic. It was very what's the term that we like to use in technology? Not federated or centered, decentralized. It was very decentralized, except for a few pockets here and there, like where they had their stuff together and they made a big long teepee, and that was the House of Nations. It's literally all these tribes were from different tribes, but they all assimilated under one banner. They were very fascinating. Very different ways of the family unit, very different ways of how it going. But essentially one tribe would say to the French, to the early French or the Spanish, they'd say, well, you gave this one tribe, guns. Essentially, give us guns so that we can avenge our losses, and then we held that balance of power for a while until it just kind of went out the window, and then there was just a floodgates of just not just the French, but it was the Dutch, it was the Spanish, it was the later on became Americans, whatever. But it was very very just a fascinating time in history for sure for me. Like, but I love that clash of cultures and that like what would happen to us because we. I hope we wouldn't be like an ant and we would just get stepped on, but.
I would like to thank you for picking this. Just Thanks. When you first picked it, I didn't immediately think of it as a apocalypse movie, but the more I thought about it, the more multi-layered it got as far as an apocalypse movie, because it was to start with, it's the end of his tribe, so that's an apocalypse to him. Going into that nightmarish world of that Mayan empire, seeing it through his eyes, that was like the end of the world for him as
Yep.
well. And then with the settlers coming in, that's another end of the world scenario. So
Yep.
it's an apocalypse over an apocalypse, and it is one guy trying to save his family through this whole thing is very entertaining.
It is, yeah. It goes back to what my dad said a long time ago. Speaking of our dads, he had this thing. He had this saying where, like, hey, when you die, like there, throughout time, the end of the world this day, the end of the world that day, it never comes, or it comes and goes,
Mm-hmm.
and as we all can
Mm-hmm.
attest to, or this crisis or that crisis. But what he said is very true. It's very wise. And when you die, when you pass on, that's the end of the world for you. That's kind of
Right.
like, it kind of like tosses it on its head, because there's a lot of movies out there like where I actually think it was I don't want to ruin it because unless I know the details, but essentially that was the end of the world for him, and it was kind of like his
Mm-hmm.
perspective. It was a little bit more lunatic on the lunatic side, but aside from that, it still meets the criteria for the concept of apocalypse. Like this is the
absolutely
end. This is the end of the line for not only the civilization, more than likely this family, or it would have been for this family, but there's things that happen, and I want to thank you too for that. I love this. I love that. I just want to be selfish, just from the standpoint of our before show talks and our after show talks, because there's just a wealth of things that I have never been exposed to that I love about our show. I hope other folks get a hook in too and find something for them.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and I like that our show, not to toot our own horn, but I'm going to, so, and you can't stop me. But basically, I love that we can look at these things and not worry about the current trends or whatnot. And if our channel catches on, that's great. But if we have our small little community here and enjoys what we're doing, then that's wonderful as well, to expose people to our crazy little movies that we love. And I'd seen Apocalypto before, but I love revisiting it. It was a great movie to watch again.
Yeah, this is one of the rare ones where I saw it in the theater and it always stuck with me. It's not like in my top 50 or anything like that. Like, well, it depends upon how you break it up, but it's definitely in the top list of movies that I enjoy. But I got to see it in the theater, and I remember it back then. I remember to this day. You're never gonna. I don't care how, unless you're like Mark Cuban and you got your basement and it's literally a theater, or was the old waterfront theater 14 city, when you took over, like whatever. Like, none of us are that well off, but maybe one day. But
yeah,
I loved it. I love this one. I hadn't seen this in forever. I can't remember what made me think of it, but Apocalypto, I was like, oh yeah, I think I came across it recently. But yeah, great picks. Dystopian.
Oh, and
the world. I love our picks. This is probably one of the more ones that I love that we picked.
yeah. Oh, and I sent you like a list of various apocalyptic movies. I know our first big comment last week mentioned a couple too, but I found it interesting that the very first one was way back further than I thought. The very first apocalypse movie, End of the World. It's a Danish science fiction movie. Was 1916, before, almost at the beginning, I guess, of cinema itself. I mean, this is a silent movie, and it's about a comet coming to crash on the Earth, or erratic comet passes by Earth, causing natural disasters. So that one,
Probably
I was like, man,
people, I would imagine.
yeah.
That's funny. How funny is it that it's the first one was a sci-fi film? I guess that's not so surprising considering the genre, because that's like I don't know, at the height of all the end of the world type movies, like that's probably half of all the movies that are out any given year.
Yeah, yeah, and just the biggest apocalypse movie that hit upon me when I was a child, which is probably telling my age, is The Day After. I think that was let's see, where is it? It's probably in the 80s. The Day After, 1983. But yeah, that one was as a TV movie, and it's basically nuclear war and what happens after the bombs hit. And at the time, it was during the Cold War, U.S. against Russia, and actually, not to be topical, but people are scared about it right now. So, but at that time, it was a big scare back then as well. And this was like, you watch that movie, it's like, oh man, this could happen. And watching that movie, it's pretty cheesy now, but going back and watching it, which I haven't, but I've seen clips from it, and it's pretty cheesy, but yeah, at the time that was a huge deal.
I
And
think that oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, and it was on TV. Everybody was watching it because there was no internet. There was just TV, so everybody was glued to this thing.
Yeah, because it was an event. It was I remember my mom growing up, and she remembered when Roots was on, and everybody stopped what they were doing. Everybody stopped what they were doing and watched that. That we don't have that anymore, but
no.
Or maybe we do in different ways. But I'll roll that back. We have it, but in different ways. Yeah, I think the first one for me.
I think I would think actually current day similarities would be Squid Games. Everybody had to see Squid Games.
That's true. Yeah, it became a thing. A little bit, the barrier to access is a little bit higher, maybe, but for the most part. But then again, if you back in the day, there was no VCR. No, I mean, the common family didn't have a VCR. Like not when my mom was growing up. Probably even when you were a kid. Like nobody had VCR tapes like as wide as they were in the '90s. And you had America's Family.
Oh, you'd be surprised. We got ours probably mid '80s, and I was a pirate bandit, man. I was copying stuff.
Oh yeah.
I had a huge collection.
Yeah, I think I don't remember one with when my sister was little, but after my brother was born in '87 or '88, I know we had one for sure. We probably had one before then, but anyway, I was gonna say real quick. My first one was. It was either Mad Max or Mad Max 2. Like now that I'm seeing it in the '80s here, it was probably. But I saw it. I didn't see it. I don't think my dad let me watch that. Like it was like one that I saw with a friend that I shouldn't have seen. And I just remember whatever one like where it was the one where he handcuffs the guy to the car, and it's
Road Warrior, yeah,
gasoline, and he's like he throws him a saw, and he essentially goes, well, if you want to, how bad do you want to get free?
Yeah. And, I think that was the first one. Yeah, definitely.
That was that would have been the '70s, I think. But in any case, like I remember that, like into the world, and then it was kind of like I didn't really know what's going on, but I do remember that scene, and I remember, I'm sure it was like, God, that was probably like, I'm show my age, like it was probably early '80s, if I'm honest, late '80s, like on TBS or something, like when they replayed the movies once in a while, but.
Yeah, a lot of the R-rated movies back when I was young, I'd wait for them to. Obviously, couldn't see them in the theater, but I would watch them on TV, heavily edited, of course. But yeah, that's where I saw, and it's on this list. Escape from New York. I saw Mad Max, but those were I wouldn't consider them my first apocalypse movies because I saw them a little bit when I was older. I didn't see Mad Max in the '70s.
I'd have to go back in the memory banks, but the one that pops up in mind is Mad Max.
And to be honest, I think we should probably in a later episode maybe go over the Mad Max movies, visit those. I think those would be a fun one to do.
I would agree with that. And then there's a new one that was pretty good too. Like maybe if we have time
Fury Road.
Cover.
Yeah, actually, I think there's a new Mad Max movie. But I think it's going to be about the female lead from the newest movie. Her story.
Charlize,
Charlize Theron. Yeah, her character.
Theron.
I think they're either filming it or getting ready to film it. So maybe we could do something to coincide that, or maybe do that beforehand.
For that, who played the male lead? I have him on I can see his face, but
Tom Hardy.
Yeah, Tom Hardy. He was in Venom and a few other ones. He's a great actor. I love him.
Yeah, and I was looking at this list, and there was stuff on here that I keep forgetting that's a apocalypse movie, but they truly are, like Planet of the Apes. That's a apocalypse movie, and
Yep, that's true.
they consider Blade Runner as one. And if you look, they progressively increase. Like we're more and more fascinated with the apocalypse. If you look at our current, the previous in 2021, that they had the biggest amount of them, the biggest list. Yeah, 2010 to 2019, that's a
Oh yeah.
huge list.
Oh yeah. You got Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines, and then you got, which nobody watched, and then you have Salvation, which even fewer people watched. I can still find joy in both. I can still find, and of course you had the steamroller from '99. I think it was Matrix. I think that was in the '90s, and then it
Yep.
continued on in the early aughts.
Aughts, yeah. Yeah, and then they put a bunch of, they put the zombie movies in here, which they are end of the world, so
Oh yeah.
makes sense. But
Well,
they're almost their own kind of genre themselves.
yeah, you also have kind of more comedic takes like Idiocracy. This is like I only call this out because it's just the ridiculousness of the genre of End of the World. But that's one movie that I can always laugh at. That is just hilarious, but also great. Well, I fall into that. Excuse me, Mike Judge. I'm a big Mike Judge fan, but anyway, I Am Legend to that. Like that, I think that was a lot more underrated than it deserved. I think it became a little bit bigger, but big controversy on that. That one might be one to follow, like where you have a book, or maybe it would be an episode related to the book, how the book is different from the movie. Maybe, I don't know, but that's vastly different than. That movie paints a vastly different picture than if you had read the book or even saw another adaptation of it. But anyway,
right, absolutely.
moving on from this stuff, this is a great list. This is like this would keep me busy forever. And I'm not gonna lie, I'd probably walk away from some of these before I even bothered. But
right, and it kind of gives us fuel for future episodes. But yeah, this whole thing, we've kind of only touched the tip of the iceberg. And the goal of our channel, which I'm sure Mike will back me up on this, is not to be a historical channel or a commentary channel or anything like that. We're just a couple of fans fanning out over our love of what we love. And,
well, we're never going to hit the politics. We don't care about that. We just want it to be an old classic conversation about cool stuff that we like, semi-related to sci-fi, semi-related to comic books, which is a very wide, thankfully for us, it's very wide, wide aperture. But anyway, with that being said, you had mentioned what we're going to do next week, which is New York Ninjas of New York, or New York Ninjas.
Oh, did you want to talk about my YouTube rec before we get into that?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. This one I kind of went back and forth on. This is not that one. That one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So some of you may know Chris Chan. You may not. If you, he's an interesting character. He's been on the internet for decades now, and just to give a brief history of him, is that he's an autistic gentleman who loves Sonic and Pikachu, and he decided to do his own comic book. And he created his own character named Sonichu, which is a combination of Sonic and Pikachu. Okay. And so he started publishing, writing and drawing these, and it's kind of written and drawn on kind of a 10-year-old competency level, whereas at the time he was just graduating high school or already graduated, and he started to upload these onto the internet. And we play around with this idea of calling people internet trolls. Basically, our current definition is if you say something bad about me, you're a troll, which is not really the case. Yeah, stop trolling. Exactly. But if you really want to know the definition of a troll, trolls are what stalked and harassed this young gentleman, and he also kind of feeds into it. There's no real hero in this saga, and it goes on today. It gets progressively worse and worse. This is not something you want to look at. A child, no children in our audience should investigate this. Christian is a wormhole that you'll go deeper and deeper and deeper into. And Gino Samuel has done the Olympian kind of task of chronicling this guy.
Oh, wow.
He's up to part 60.
Wow.
Or 59. I think 60 just came out. But yeah, there's he's also transitioned into a woman now. He's Christine Chandler now.
Okay.
But yeah, it goes. I think all the parts are there. If you scroll all the way down, it goes to part one, and each of these are between 40 minutes to an hour. And like I said, there are 59 parts. So if you've run out of things to watch, this will keep you busy for a long time. It's very fascinating. This guy is, and I guess I should say, girl now is the most. They say that he's the most researched or documented person on the internet. And this is just a glimpse. What Gino is doing is sort of taking all the information and assembling it into a narrative, and he does a wonderful job. At one point, he had to stop after I think part 20 or so because YouTube kept taking down his episodes for bullying, just because he was reporting on the trolls bullying Christian. But so he had to go back and re-edit a bunch of his previous ones so that it didn't fall under the bullying guidelines of YouTube, which is kind of archaic. But yeah, I think all the episodes are currently up, and very, very fascinating. And for a sort of like a historical perspective on someone, it's a great watch. But again, it's not for the lighthearted. What the trolls have done to him and what he's done to the trolls go beyond what what you would imagine. And Gino obviously censors everything, but he does cover it all.
Yeah, that reminds me, and I'm trying to find it over here on the side, and I didn't come prepared with it. I wish I would have known a little bit more, but there is a YouTube channel that like he does that. But it's a lot shorter time span. Like this is like epic documentary length for.
Oh yeah.
You said he goes.
Yeah, there are.
She goes by Christine Chan or Christine.
Her last name's Chandler. They shorted it to Christian, but yeah, it's Christine Chandler.
Christine Chandler. Yeah, so like you have this like epic.
Yeah,
never
and at this point, I think he's up to 2018 as far as the storyline of his life. And just as a spoiler, I won't say why, but Christine Chandler is currently in jail. I won't say why.
Okay.
But again, it's a deep rabbit hole that gets more and more disturbing. So
yeah,
I thought this would be perfect for an apocalyptic story episode.
Yeah, I have two that I want to mention. I can't find it, and maybe I can pick up the spare next week. But there's
before, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, there are smaller documentaries about Christian, so that don't go up to today, but there are some out there if you just want to do a bite size. If you search for Christian documentary, you could probably find a smaller one. But yeah, this is the big enchilada if you wanted to know everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I can't. One of them is PG, like or G rated, and I would mention I can't find them for the life of me. The other one, maybe if we get a little bit bigger following or whatever, we can do an after show, like where we're a little bit more spicy, maybe a little bit less restrained.
Yeah.
But I in that vein, I won't recommend their channel in the PG. section of the thing. But
Gotcha.
I know. If I mentioned who it was, you'd be like, "Oh yeah. I will.
Mhm.
I guess I can drop a little hint. But they do Mad Lads. They do a
Mhm.
Mad Lads series, and it's just fascinating. Fascinating. Some of the people they picked, like there's a German guy that reminds me of this particular situation where it's just like first they start out as like you don't quite know if they're serious or whatever to be kind of trolling,
Mhm.
and then it kind of flips around on them, like where people go
Mhm.
out and they like light off fireworks and like all kinds of things to disturb the peace for this person, because they track them down,
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And some of it's sad, some of it's kind of
Mhm.
funny, but
Mhm.
most of it is just real life.
Mhm.
But in any case, good pick, good
Oh,
pick.
and mhm. But yeah, well, I'll have to talk to you about that after after the channel
Maybe, yeah.
or thing ends. But yeah, the again, another warning for Christian. You may hate me after for mentioning this. So if you go down this rabbit hole and hate me for it, you can let me know in the comments.
Sure.
But be warned. Like I said, this isn't G rated. It goes to R and X. So
Okay.
so don't hate me if you go down this rabbit hole.
Not
You've been warned. You've been warned.
not safe for work,
Yeah.
I think is what you're looking for, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course, if you're, I wish I had that job where I could just watch YouTube all day, but yeah, we all have those down spots of the day. All right, so great pick. I wish I had a YouTube one to follow, but I don't. Next week I will come more prepared. Is good, is good. And then I
Right.
think kind of this is a good segue to next week for sure.
Mhm.
And I didn't have any. I didn't have any recommendations for comic books this week. This week was all video focused, and I think next week we're going to
Mhm.
jump into more video focus
Yeah.
with what one I
Mhm.
have been absolutely. I can't wait. I can't wait to dig into it and watch it. But this is what is it called? Yeah, that's right, because it had the YouTube thing, and I guess we could maybe play a
Yeah.
minute of this and do a little commentary while we're kind of we're
Actually,
I'll
maybe
save it.
pull up
We'll save it.
there. Do the New York Ninja trailer.
Good
I'm
idea.
sure there's a trailer on there. But yeah, while you're doing that, I'll give them sort of heads up on it. New York Ninja is a movie that was shot in 1984, was never fully finished, and languished in a warehouse. The film rules languished until Vinegar Syndrome, which is on the screen now, actually found this movie. They bought it. They bought a big lot of movies, and they were looking at this palette with all these film rolls on there, and they were like, "Well, what is this?" And they said, "Oh, it's this unfinished movie. We could throw the. You don't have to take that. We could throw that out." They go, "No, no, 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 no. Well, let's keep that one." So they actually kind of went through and decided this was an amazing movie. And what they did was they put it together. They re-edited it, and there was no sound to it, so they had to put all the sound. They picked various actors to voice, and that's shown there. The various characters, and they also got a current music band to give an 80s synth soundtrack to it, and a wonderful classic movie that a hidden or forgotten gem that was never seen from 1984, starring and directed and written by John Liu.
Nice, awesome. Yeah, I cannot wait to dig into this. Like I was telling you before we started, like I still have it in the cellophane because I can't. If I open it, I'm gonna watch it, and if I watch it, I
Yeah,
want to make sure I'm paying attention and like
right.
that's just for
Yeah.
the sake of joy. But like
Uh-huh.
this
Yeah,
is like,
mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
Currently it's only available through Vinegar Syndrome on
Yep.
Blu-ray. You can get it on Amazon a little bit cheaper if you want to give in to the Amazon overlords. I think it's like $30. I think on Vinegar's website it's like 35. But obviously, if you have the extra cash, ordering it from the source, actually it's only 27. So that's a good deal. But if you don't have the cashola and want to be pre-prepared for the movie, Red Letter Media did a sort of or Mystery Science Theater kind of video of this, kind of going through the various scenes and talking about it, which we'll provide the link to that down below. But yeah, so if you wanted to watch that, it goes through the whole movie, so you'll have a good idea of what's going on. And I watched this before I watched the movie, and it was a wonderful kind of thing. So, but yeah, I don't want to go further into. I probably went a little more than I should this episode, but we're gonna go deeper into this next time.
Yeah, and I think we're going to play, whether it's this one or from the movie itself, however we do that capture, we'll do fair use if it's relevant, and we can do a little commentary if we have something, if we want to do that, maybe not. But well, this week was really cool. I'm kind of glad we're back to movies. Like it's just it's a different pace, different change of pace, like watching something versus like, and of course jotting down a note or two versus like, comic book where it's a little bit more. I don't know about you, but like I don't do all my comic book reading in one shots unless it's like a simple issue or something like that, or a couple back to back. Like usually it's the omnibus. Well, I'm kind of I'm playing hard catch up from that angle. But aside from that, I loved our picks this week. I'm really looking forward to next week. But we might do something a little bit different. Maybe we can. We'll talk after the show here and get a little bit better planning. But I think this warrants maybe a little bit extra special attention for this one because and I know you're busting to tell me like what's up with it, but I just know this is going to be something dumb, but I love it. I'm going to love it no matter what, and it just from this how it washed up on the shore as a bottle, a message in a bottle, so to speak, and then somebody took that and then they made artwork from it. But in any case, I think we're rolling up on about an hour, maybe a little bit more. Did you have anything else that you wanted to cover, like from what you're reading, or callbacks to anything, or what to look out for, or anything like that? Before we go.
Well, not really. Unlike you, I still go weekly to the comic book shop and get my handful of floppies. But yeah,
I do not do that.
Last week everything was pretty solid. I enjoyed everything I read, but nothing stood out as far as you must read this. If you're currently reading Batman, actually Amazing Spider-Man. I wasn't real crazy about the writers on Amazing Spider-Man, but they're doing a solid job. They've just introduced the new villain Goblin Queen, or Queen Goblin, I think she's called. Reminiscent of Green Goblin and Hobgoblin. This is a new villain, but yeah, she's kind of interesting. But nothing big. But remember to like and subscribe and add your comments. If you have a bad movie so bad that it's good recommendation, you can do that. Depending on how our conversation goes for the movie, I'm sure we could probably fill a whole hour with this, but we might go over a few bad movies that are good that we like as well.
Absolutely. And I will say, stay tuned, because in the next few weeks we might have something very, very special to pull out and to show you guys. It'll be very fun. We're not going to reveal anything right now, but that we're finding our way.
There's very exciting things coming up. We're just going to get bigger and better as we go.
Absolutely. Yep. And one of these days we'll maybe get to live, but one thing at a time. Thomas, this week was just fun. I loved it. I can't wait to sit back and watch the City of Lost Children again, for sure. And thanks again for another week. I think this was like episode 10 or something like that, but it was like the fourth one of the new year, I think, for sure. Regardless, however we need to do like a season and whatever, and then do that like the professionals do. But in any case, I've been Mike Shaw.
I'm Thomas.
And this has been the First to Last.
And the Nerdom.
Awesome. All right.